right. We are live. All right. I have a very exciting show today. Go live with another host. Let's see. Kirsten. Hopefully Kirsten is going to be have a very exciting show today. Error Phase, thanks for being here. I am going to be having a homeschool mother on, assuming everything works out, so hopefully it does. But really what looked like to me like a public school horror story turned into a homeschool dream. So I am scheduled to have Kirsten Morley on today. I did inbox her a few minutes ago, so hopefully she got that. Let me see if she's live yet. Kirsten. I'll give Kirsten a few minutes, but I'm very excited. Invite another host to go live. Invite. Come on. Very excited to talk with her because she has a very interesting TikTok page, Kirsten Morley, and our fate kind of made our paths cross, where she was looking for help with homeschooling and she had posted a video. I'll give her a few minutes and then I'll see. I reached out to her a few minutes ago. We spoke yesterday, so hopefully there's not any issues. But yeah, she had posted a video where she was very upset, and she was talking about her experience with public school and it wasn't going well for her child. And she said, does anyone want to teach me how to homeschool? And I had made a response, a stitch response to her video. And my stitch response to her video ended up getting over 600,000 views on it, and one of the better videos I've ever done. And you know, since then she had followed me, and I said, hey, do you want to come on the show? And she said yes. We were going to do it yesterday, but I guess it didn't work out with the scheduling. She said let's do it tomorrow, and I haven't actually spoken with her today, but I did inbox her that I'd be going live at 12, so hopefully we can hook up here and she can tell her story, because I think she has an important story, and for so many parents going through public school horror stories, this type of stuff is important. All right, it doesn't look like she's live yet. See, a lot of people are live, but I don't see Kirsten. All right. Come on. We had scheduled for 12 noon Eastern, so maybe she's just running a little bit behind. If by any chance she's not showing up, then I'll have to wing it, because that was my plan for the stream. But you know what? That could almost be better if she doesn't show up. Not that it's, you know, I appreciate if she shows up, but if she doesn't, I will have an open Q&A, and you could ask me literally anything about your homeschools or whatever it might be that you have questions about. So that could be a good thing as well. We could talk a little bit about Halloween, and I had a really good Halloween with my family. So all right, I'm gonna give her a minute and see. Maybe she's just running behind, but I was very excited to have her on. Like I said, she's very impressive. She recently started homeschooling her child after what looked like a public school nightmare, so hopefully that is the case. My kids were homeschooling and are now in private school. They say my kids are behind. Advice. Well, my question would be, they're behind what, right? So when people say my kids are behind, they're talking about the arbitrary guidelines, right? It's not very objective. Arbitrary guidelines of the Department of Education. So an example of a child being behind would be, oh, well, this child's in 3rd grade and he doesn't know what year Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Does it really matter? So to me, there is no ahead behind. There is only the pace of your child. So you see where your child is, and if they're quote unquote behind, you slow down, allow them to take the time, as much time as they need to learn the subject you're trying to teach them. And when they're ready, and you'll know when that is, and that's not some arbitrary deadline by the Department of Education. When they're ready, that's when you advance. Education, all education should be customized to meet the needs of your children, right? And it really doesn't make sense to follow those guidelines. Like, you look at standardized testing, right? It's really that standardized testing model that, listen, in 5th grade, it really doesn't make sense to follow those guidelines. Like, you look at standardized testing, right? It's really that standardized testing model that, listen, in 5th grade, little John... Come on. Oh, there is low connection. So if you're teaching to a test, you're memorizing, your child's not really learning anything. What we want to focus on with early childhood education is the process of learning itself, right? We want a master's degree in the process of learning, and we want our children to get that master's degree in early childhood so that when they reach 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th high school years, that they are capable of learning new information on them for themselves when they follow their interest and research topics that they're interested in. So let me see if Kirsten is live. If she's not, I have a feeling I'm being stood up here. All right. All right. I did add host. I don't see her. And now I'll do add guest. Nope. Oh. Let me try one more time. Add host. All right. I mean, I'll see if she comes in. Maybe she'll send me an invite, but we were scheduled for today, so I don't know. Maybe she had something come up in her life. She's a parent. These things happen. So sorry if she can't be here. That's actually kind of upsetting to me. I was very, very much looking forward to speaking with her. This is what I was trying to avoid. I went from private school to our first year homeschooling, and we love it. Yeah, well, that's a big change. And even private schools are vastly superior to public schools. You just have to make sure that you know the administration, you know the principal, you know the teachers, because there are many private schools that are teaching to the test. There are many private schools that are, unfortunately, teaching children some of the messages that we don't want them to learn. A great example, I mean, there are private schools all over America right now that are forcing children to restrict their breathing. I like to talk around the algorithms, not to draw attention, right? And when they're teaching children that they should restrict their breathing, they are telling them that these authoritative narratives are true, right? So, I mean, imagine being a 6-year-old child, 7-year-old child, and you go to public school or private school, and you're told that you have to restrict your breathing to protect the other people around you, or to protect your family and yourself. What you're really being told is that there is something invisible that is a threat to you, a threat to your health, a threat to your friends, a threat to your family, and that basic human interaction, coming within 6 feet of someone, could risk the life of grandma. Playing and roughhousing and laughing and jumping on each other and all the things that children like to do is risking the life of your family members. To me, that's a very damaging narrative. And I remember growing up, you'd hear some people, oh, he's a hypochondriac, right? Well, what type of post-traumatic stress? What type of disorders are currently being created on a large scale for the current generation because they're being taught that basic human interaction could kill grandma? And then you think about, and this is why I push so hard to get people out of these public school, these private school systems. Well, they rolled out this agenda, and I'm going to call it an agenda, right? And for the most part, I mean, it's been, Miss Jenny, how you doing? For the most part, it's been very successful, right? Well, now they have a generation of children, the public school generation. Now, there are over 11 million families homeschooling in the United States of America right now. Homeschooling is the modern day homeschool movement. If you are a part of it, you are part of one of the largest grassroots freedom movements in the history of the United States of America, and that is something you should be very, very proud of. So they rolled out this agenda, and for the children that have been subjected to public school, for the children that have gone to school and have had to restrict their breathing, that have been told that they have to stay at least 6 feet away from their peers, otherwise grandma can get sick, right? Who have been forced to sit at desks in which there are big glass dividers because there's an invisible threat that's not there but is always there that could kill them and kill their family. The psychological damage being done to a generation of children, right? Well, they're going to be, in my opinion, right, that can create hypochondriacs, right? So what happens when they roll out, this is what they did in 2020. What happens when they roll something out in 2030? What happens when they roll something out in 2040, in 2050? And now you have this generation of children that grew up being conditioned to fear that invisible threat, right? How willing is that generation going to be to surrender their rights? Now, that is a double-edged sword, right? That is a double-edged sword. Why is that? Because there's also, right, when the devil throws you out of hell, smile and keep on walking. Don't even turn around. And because of what has happened 20 months ago, there are more people homeschooling in America right now than any time in the last 100 years. And these children aren't only being homeschooled. They're being homeschooled because their parents are showing them that there is a dark cloud of authoritarianism descending over the Western world. So these children are not only being homeschooled, not only being pulled out of the public school system, but are being taught from a very young age their rights and the mechanisms through which tyranny takes away people's rights. So in 20 years, when they roll out the next agenda, right? When they roll out the next agenda, the next event, you will have quite a paradigm of people that have been conditioned from the time they are children to fear that invisible threat and to surrender all of their rights, versus a group of people who have been homeschooled, a large group of people. And you have to keep in mind that if 11 million families are homeschooling, these are families generally with freedom values, who value traditional family, who have Christian type values, who are more likely, right? So many homeschool families I speak with have 4, 5, 6, 7 children, believe it or not, right? And God willing, I'll get there myself one day. I have 2 children right now, and God willing, as many as I can get. We are being fruitful and multiplying, and there is a whole generation of young children who are going to grow up and are going to be the next generation of freedom fighters who stand for liberty, who stand together as a community in defiance of tyranny. But that starts now, and that's why I push my message so hard. That's why I left the public school system, because if we want to take back our country, if we want freedom, if we want to build the traditional American nation of liberty and prosperity, then you do that through taking control of the education system and the next generation. Let me see if Kirsten is live now. If not, she's obviously not making it, which is unfortunate. Frustrating to me. All right. That's unfortunate. I just see behind me my dog going nuts chasing a squirrel. You hear that, Dr. Fauci? Can't be anywhere near my dog. I'm sorry, I don't mean to call you that. Mr. Ouchie. Right. So anyway, if you guys have any questions as it relates to your homeschool, as it relates to freedom, as it relates to the next generation, as it relates to education, you have my attention. I originally planned on doing a live stream with Kirsten Morley, who is a very impressive young woman. I had scheduled with her yesterday, and she wrote me back that, hey, sorry, something came up. Can we do it tomorrow? I said, yes, let's do it today at 12, and unfortunately, I guess she's not here. So if you guys could smash the like button, I really appreciate that. Let me know if you have any questions as it relates to anything I'm talking about. I have never and will never restrict my children's breathing, says Miss Jenny. I'm just talking in hobo code, so I have to change the wording a little bit. Yeah, you have to think about not only when we make decisions like, all right, I want my child to be able to go here, but this place is saying that they'd have to restrict their breathing. What are the psychological impacts of putting that on your children? You're teaching them that it's okay to capitulate to tyranny, right? That it's okay to surrender your rights, not to fight for your rights. You're teaching them that maybe there is some truth to what these people are saying, that they should be scared, that they should give up their rights because they are afraid, right? So these are messages that we have to think about everything we do with our children, because they're not only taking in the direct messaging, they're taking in that subliminal message, and they're learning not just from what you say, but from your actions, which is why I have tried so hard, and I started this 23 months ago, however long it was now. I started in New York, where the tyranny was very extreme, and I really worked hard to make sure that my child didn't see me wearing a mask. I probably restricted my breathing probably 5, at most 6, 7 times during this entire stretch. I've never restricted the breathing of my children, and the only times I did is just because I felt out-leveraged. For example, when my wife was in the hospital giving birth, I felt out-leveraged, and I just didn't want to put up that fight when she was in a condition in which she was vulnerable, because she had asked me not to. And in other situations, I might have pushed back, but in that situation, I did feel out-leveraged. I said, all right, let's just do what we have to do, and let's get out of this hospital. But other than that, it's been a handful of times. I even shut down a voting center because I wouldn't capitulate to tyranny. So always push back against tyranny. Pulled my 2nd grade school kids out this year, and if you need any assistance, my private homeschool community, Homeschools Connected, use the promotion code TOGETHER, and it's $10 a month. Really good thing. I'm in California. I'm so glad. Scared for kids here. I'd be worried if they were genetically modified at school without consent. Yeah, well, this is a crazy world, and who knows, these things could happen, so I worry about those things too. I gave a speech for the Constitution Party National Committee a week or 2 ago, and in that speech, I talked about the things we learned over the last 20 months, and we learned a lot. We learned that government, media, social media, banks, insurance company, tax-exempt foundations, and corporations were willing to echo the dictates of tyrants, both with the medical agenda and the Black Lives Matter agenda, to the point where anyone who questioned it would be ostracized out of society. We learned that politicians, media pundits, social media companies, we learned that sports broadcasters, late-night comedians, even Elmo would echo the dictates of tyrants. But we also learned the people that were courageous. We learned people that were willing to stand in the face of ostracism, social shame, financial terrorism, in my opinion, with what they're doing with people's jobs, which is why I tell people to get out of debt, get out of debt, get out of debt, because they're leveraging your situation against you. People who are willing to stand together in defiance of tyranny. With great courage, right? You were able to see into the soul of your fellow man. I met a man, I moved to the Carolinas in July, so I only recently met him, and I saw him stand in the face of his employer, and he was going to lose his job. He wound up getting a religious exemption, but he was going to make them fire him. And I know more about that man than I know about certain people I've known my whole life, because what's happened in the last 20 months has been the great revealer. I saw a man willing to stand by his morality, willing to stand by his conviction, willing to surrender everything because he would not give in to tyranny. The great revealer. And 2020 and what's happened since then has also taught us that some of the bravest people you will ever meet, and this is what I said, Infinite741, thank you. I don't know what the sunglasses are, but again, I'm guessing that's money, so I really appreciate that. Some of the bravest people, and I said this in my speech, some of the bravest people you will ever meet are 5'3" moms willing to walk into a Trader Joe's in California with a big, visible smile on their face. Never surrender to tyranny, because when a bully hits you and you don't do anything back, he is going to beat you up every day in the schoolyard. Speaking of which, by the way, my friend, Tom Burnett, I've talked about him on the stream before. My friend Tom Burnett in Australia, in the real, the den of the beast, has announced that he is running for mayor of the town that he lives in. You can find Tom Burnett, tomburnett.tv on Instagram. You can find him, tomburnett.tv, if you Google it. He is a true champion of freedom. He has done more for the freedom movement, for liberty, than myself, and I don't practice false humility. I've done a lot. I've worked with many families, teaching them to homeschool their children. I've written children's books on liberty. I've given speeches in front of the Constitution Party National Committee. I've had personal inboxes with Congress people and given them my counsel and my ideas. But Tom Burnett has done much more than I have done. He is a true patriot and champion of liberty, and if he gets into the Australian government, that is a big win for the good guys. Spread his message. Support good people, because if you don't support them, they go away. And I can't tell you how important that is. I homeschool because I always planned, and the you-know-what was the last push. Yes, it was what happened in 2020 was the devil kicking you out of hell. So don't be mad about it. Trust in God's plan and say, thank you, Lord, for showing me the light. Pull your children out of public school. Get out of debt, because a man in debt can be leveraged. Grow your food, because a man who does not grow his food can be leveraged with grocery stores. Build community and have in-group preference. Don't shop at Walmart. Shop mom and pop, because that creates a battery and that pumps money back into your community. Because when you buy from that mom and pop business, that keeps a local person who lives in your town out of financial trouble. It makes them less desperate. They're able to pay their employers. They and their employers, they buy from local farms, local suppliers. They're able to go to the local restaurant, and they spend money at the local restaurant, which keeps another local business owner out of financial straits, makes them less desperate, less controllable. That money goes to their employers, that you spend that money at the restaurant, the tips go to the waitress. They buy from another local place. You create a battery, and that's how you create wealth, and that's how you are less controllable. Reject hookup culture. Show young people that it's the expectation that they marry. Show young people it's the expectation they put their husband first, they put their wife first. If someone mistreats their spouse, you let them know and you shame them. Social shame goes both ways. And I don't want to be friends with someone who mistreats their spouse. That's disgusting. That's not the culture I want my children to grow up in. You made a vow, you made a commitment in front of your community, in front of God, and you do them right. Now, I understand certain things happen, and sometimes it is irreconcilable, right? But for the most part, it's not. And people need to tough things out, and they need to put family first and have lots of children, and then raise your children. And don't send them to daycares, don't send them to government schools. Spend time with your children, educate your children, and prevent your children from being indoctrinated. And show them how to do entrepreneurial things and teach them skills and get them entrepreneurial experience. And as your children grow up and they get bigger and stronger and they take those skills and they start businesses, teach them about in-group preference, to hire their friends, to keep their money within their community. Be fruitful and multiply and grow strong. And of course, armed to the teeth within legal means. Of course, I would never recommend anyone do anything illegal. But you do everything within the law to protect yourself, to protect your family, to protect your community. People think we need a revelation. People think we need a revolution, but what we really need is a revelation. That our freedom does not derive from the government, that our freedom does not derive from politicians, that the government gets its power from the consent of the governed. But we don't consent with calling out hypocrisy. We don't consent with our words. We have to demand our freedom with the manner in which we conduct ourselves and the way in which we live our life. Which is why I tell people, you get out of debt, you grow your food, you put community first, you put family first, you have lots of children, you educate your children. And if you do all these things, and enough people do these things, and enough people echo this message, if people spent more time on this message and less time on look how hypocritical the people in government are, they know they're hypocritical. That's why they're taking money from the pharmaceutical industry. They know they're hypocrites. That's why they're taking money from big agriculture. Lost connection. That's why they're taking money from big agriculture, from Monsanto, the devil, from Bayer. You look up the epistemology of Bayer, you look up their history. Oh, Nelly, who made that gas in World War II? Your friendly pharmaceutical industry. My kids have lived their lives 100% normal, whole time, and never sick. They are ungenetically modified, and you are crushing. I wish I could, but I've seen too many... Oh, God. People get sick, people. You know, my father was afraid when he volunteered to go to Vietnam when he was 18 years old. But he understood that freedom wasn't free. Right? My grandfather was afraid when he touched down in Japan during World War II. But generations of Americans have given their lives, have had their arms blown off their body, their legs blown off their body. What do you think? They weren't afraid? But they didn't surrender their liberty. And to surrender all of the freedoms that your grandparents, that your forefathers fought for because you're afraid, is quite frankly disgraceful. Disgraceful. It's unbecoming. You're not worthy of freedom if you're willing to do that. And by the way, the people in control of the system, that's how they view it. They say, hey, we just told people to be afraid. And they said, oh, I'll give up my freedom. Well, if that's what you're going to do, you're not worthy of freedom. And how selfish to surrender those rights that your father and your grandfather and our forefathers went and fought for. Not only to surrender the rights for them, but to tell the future generation, to tell my children, to tell the children of the people in this chat room, to tell the children all over America that they don't get to grow up with the liberty and the freedom of speech and the right to assemble and the right to protest, the right to freedom to practice religion, to fair trials. They don't get to grow up with these things because you were afraid. Yeah, people get sick. And by the way, if you look at the statistics from the authorities in that area, talking a little bit in hobo code, if you look at the statistics, it's people with 2.6 comorbidities. And the reason people have had these permanent effects is because they don't understand health systems, they don't understand their body. So if you talk to naturopaths, go get blood work, talk to a naturopath, and figure out what foods you should be eating, what supplements certain people take, how to de-stress your life, your body will recover because God made our bodies to be incredible, to be divine. And if you treat your body right, your body has within it the capacity to heal. Never surrender your rights, and never surrender your rights when you're afraid. In fact, if you feel that fear, look in the mirror, pinch yourself, and say, why am I doing this? .420 Drya. So glad for them. I see you were spot on. Wow. Amen. It's so nice to see a young person awake. Yeah, well, I'm writing children's books, so wait till you see how young they start waking up these days. Not afraid to get sick whatsoever. I had the boogeyman. Oh, by the way, allegedly could it be? I mean, I don't like to admit these things because, you know, with the medical tyranny, you got to be careful. But allegedly, last January, I had that thing that everyone's so afraid of. In fact, my sister, allegedly could it be, might have had it last week, right? I don't know, allegedly could it be. Not saying that. You get sick in life. That's part of life. I know people that haven't left their house in almost 2 years. Haven't seen their family, haven't seen their mother, haven't seen their father. You're so afraid to die, you stop living. We cannot let our fathers die in vain. We are one generation away from losing our freedom, yet we are one generation away from making America the freest place it's ever been. Because never forget that politics are not only downstream from culture, but culture is downstream from morality. So when I talk about things, when I talk about how if I had a friend and he was out having one-night stands with girls, right, and talking about how cool he was, I would tell him I don't even want to hang out with him anymore. Like, that's not the culture. I think that's immoral. Like, that's not the culture I want my children to grow up in. Culture is downstream from morality, and politics are downstream from culture. And if we embrace that we are divine, if we embrace that we are made in God's image, and we embrace that we expect our friends to carry themselves with a certain code of conduct, then America will be an infinitely better place than it is right now in 20 years. Especially if we have lots of children and we homeschool them. So have lots of children, because money is not wealth. I am a wealthier man. Did you know that I am wealthier than Bill Gates? Did you know that I am wealthier than Jeff Bezos? Because there is nothing on God's beautiful green earth that they could give me for my children. I have something that they cannot buy from me. Therefore, I have more wealth than them. Children are wealth. Be fruitful and multiply and raise them right. You will never be left in a nursing home to rot if you have children that you raise right and love you. In fact, you will find that if you homeschool them and you raise them right when they're 20, 25 years old, those alleged financial liabilities will make so much money that your life will get great. Family is wealth. Community is wealth. Know your neighbor. Love thy neighbor. Know your neighbor's name. Know their business. Ask them if you could buy from them and not Walmart. When Jesus was going to die, and he knew he was going to die, in his last night with the apostles, he got down on his knees and he took out a washcloth and started cleaning the feet of his apostles, including Judas. He wanted their last image of him to be him on his knees in service of his friends, in service of his fellow man. He was showing them how to live. And the story of Jesus, see, you always hear people, like, I get people who come into my chats a lot, and you'll get, accept Jesus Christ as your Savior and you will be saved. He died for your sins. Jesus did not die so you could watch porn 3 times a day and cheat on your wife and embrace usury and have a big house and 3 cars and a boat. And Jesus didn't die. He didn't die so you could sin. Jesus died for us because he was willing to come down to earth and show you the path of how to live in the beast system. So Jesus, the soul, decided to come down to earth. And he knew that on earth, there will be trials and there will be tribulations. And he knew that in the devil's realm, right? Because God allows the devil to run the earth, that he would be persecuted. He knew that he would be strung up to a cross. But he wanted to show you how to be free. And the story of Jesus is an archetype story, a true story, but an archetype story that he did through living, where he showed you this is how you be free. He was showing you, this is what I'm telling you about. He was showing you, work with your hands, have skills, right? So that you're less controllable. Live humbly. You don't think Jesus could have raised a lot of money? He was poor. Don't accept usury. In fact, Jesus went into the banks. Don't you think there's a reason that Jesus went into the bank? The Pharisees flipped over the tables, took out a whip. By the way, don't ever tell me a Christian is docile. Took out a whip and chased the bankers out. He was telling you to reject usury by living a humble life, right? By being poor, by chasing the bankers out with a whip. He was telling you to reject usury. He was telling you everything he did, every story of Jesus is him going somewhere to help people. He was telling you to live a life of service, to love thy neighbor, to get on your knees and clean their feet even when you know you're going to be strung up on a cross and killed in front of everyone. Don't let Joel Osteen and the Pope and these disgusting people who subvert the word of God sever your connection to divinity and sever your connection to Jesus Christ, who is my Lord and Savior. So when the people come in here, like they come on my comments on my stuff and like try to criticize me, like, oh, accept Jesus as your Savior and you will be saved because he died for your sin. Jesus didn't die for my sin so I could live a life of sin. He died for my sin so he could show me a living example, a role model of how I'm expected to live my life, which I fall dreadfully short of the example of Jesus. In fact, when I pray at night, I pray to God and I apologize for how short I fall of the example of Jesus. And I ask for the strength and the wisdom so that I can do a little bit better the next day, that I could be a little bit more godly the next day and get better. And if you have enough people that do that, and that is why they subvert Christianity. That is why the Pope with his Lucifer telescope, yeah, they have a telescope named Lucifer in the Vatican. That is why they work so hard to subvert Christianity. That is why the you-know-what-ophilia is widespread all across the Catholic Church. Because they are attempting to sever your connection to God. They are attempting to sever your connection to the path of Jesus Christ. Because the people that control this world, the people who do the bidding of Satan, understand that if enough people truly understood the power of Jesus Christ and the embodiment of his example, that people would understand why the founding fathers would say, you derive your rights from God, that these are God-given rights, but you don't just get them because the devil's always trying to take them away. You have to earn your rights every day, and you don't earn that by pointing out hypocrisy. You earn that through living a lifestyle that is in accordance with the message, with the example, the embodiment of Jesus Christ. By the way, if you smash the like button, that really helps me reach more people. My private homeschool community, Homeschools Connected, $10 a month. If you want assistance with homeschooling your children, you get access to the community, my research, myself. And if you want to support me, that's probably the best way to do it. Love thy neighbors is very important. I saw a video this morning. So many children. So, yeah, look up... talk about people getting hurt. The VEARS system. space A space. I'm just trying to throw off the algorithms, because if you talk about that, the algorithms go crazy. How many documented morbidities? How many documented expirations have there been on that system? Did you know? You're going to be shocked by how high the numbers are. And did you know that a Harvard study, Harvard, right? People who love authority. Years ago, a Harvard study found that only 1% of the type of injuries that are supposed to be reported to that VA space ERS system are reported. 1%. So if you take a number, I don't know, a crazy number like 15,000, and then you add 99% to that, what number is that? Fear is the virus. By the way, have you checked the definitions they use? Because they recently changed the definition of what it means to be the word I can't say. By the way, if you ever want to know if you should be afraid or not, if there's words you can't say in public, or they'll get you, exiled, then maybe the people that are telling you to be afraid aren't giving it to you straight. Because if they were, they wouldn't have to go through these extraordinary lengths to shut people like me up. Right? Right? So, if someone were to take this pen, and maybe it has some stuff in it, and someone in a lab coat, and were to shoot it in my arm, right? If they did that, and I were to come down with the Heineken infection 2 days later, would I be documented by the authorities as being a person who received this thing, or a person who was unreceived this thing? I'll break the suspense. I would be documented as a person who unreceived this thing. So the statistics that people were referring to earlier mean absolutely nothing. In fact, Bill Gates, one of his favorite books, in a video when he was doing one of his talks, right there behind him, maybe he didn't mean to do it, maybe he did just to mock people, was a book titled How, again, I'm going to talk in promo code, in lost connection. Come on, connection. Connection back. How, 1, 2, 3, LIE, with, you know what, statistics. Sorry I have to talk in hobo code, but this is the world we live in, you see? When people are making people like me talk the way I have to talk to give you the definitions of the word. When authority is making people like me talk in the code that I'm speaking in, to give the definitions of words that people aren't allowed to say on the internet, maybe, just maybe, they're using the statistics to frighten you and to scare you. I don't know. What do I know? Don't listen to me. Do you know about terrain theory? Yes, I think terrain theory is probably accurate when it comes to certain types of sicknesses and inaccurate when it comes to other types of sicknesses. But I don't want to get too much into that, because that gets into the real realm of... I made a decision not to fight the beast too head on, right? In Sun Tzu's The Art of War, but yeah, look into that. In Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and military generals all throughout history, all throughout the world, at West Point they teach this stuff, right? In The Art of War, Sun Tzu pointed out that it doesn't make sense to fight your enemy where they're strongest and where they can beat you back, right? Right? I'm operating right now in the realm of the beast system. What Sun Tzu would say is to find out where your enemy is weak and fight them there. And make your enemy think you are strong where you are weak and weak where you are strong. Right? Hey, Kirsten! Guys, she's here. All right, we're doing this. Hello!
Hi, I'm so sorry I'm so late. It was a really bad morning. How are
Hey,
you?
listen, I have been there, and when you have children, sometimes it's just pull your hair out.
Ugh. Yeah, I'm ready to love them as much as possible.
Very cool. Well, I was going on long rants about freedom and everything happening in the world, but this is a great transition because what I was telling people is when the devil throws you out of hell, don't complain. Just smile, wave, and keep on walking right on out. And I don't know your full story, but it looks like the devil kind of threw you out of hell. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kirsten Morley. Hold on. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, sorry, I had to hurry and turn my Wi-Fi back on. So hi, I'm Kirsten Morley. I'm actually a certified energy healer, and I do the modality of the emotion code. I absolutely love it so much, and but I ended up. I'm telling my story about my child, right? But
We'll that we can get into that too.
yeah, so we recently moved. I think it was like a year ago that we moved. And my little girl, her name is Claire. She was in first grade last year, and she's in second time with just life. Just because just like the transition of moving and everything was just really hard for her. And then long story short, like she was doing fine for a little while, but then over time things just progressively got worse and worse and worse. And I didn't know if it was the school, the kids, the area that we moved to is a little bit lower income family. And sometimes I feel like those family situations, a lot of the families here in our neighborhood is like broken family. And so nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, there's a lot less like parenting involved, parents that are involved, and so there's a lot more trouble and stuff like that. But long story short, she one day, I think it was in when we like the first couple weeks, she was going really good to second grade, and we were just like, okay, let's do this. We're doing really great here. And then one day she just like turned off and she's like, I don't want to go to school. And I was like, and I had an important meeting that day, and I was like, no, you have to go to school today. Like, you have to go to school. So, I am not proud of this, but I literally had to drag her out of the house. She was already dressed. Luckily, I had to drag her out of the house. I called the school. I was like, hey, please come help me get my child out of the car. And again, I am not proud of this, but we ended up getting her out of the car. And I was like, literally, she was attached to my legs. And I was like walking like a penguin into the school trying to get her to go to school. And I didn't know this until after it had happened, but she was literally crying and hyperventilating. And I was just, and after that, after I found that out, she was doing that for like a good couple hours. And I was just like, what just happened? And ever since that moment, I have started listening to her. And so that's that's the day that I had that video that you stitched, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what is this? Like, what's going on? Our kids didn't have to wear masks, luckily, but I knew there was something going on, and there was. And so there was actually a kid that was not being nice to her. And I don't know if it was just one kid or multiple kids, but for some reason she just wasn't having it. And then she just up and said, I don't want to go to school. Like, and it just, I just sat there, and I felt my heart saying, like, you know what, let's think about homeschooling. And so I was just like, okay, like, let's look into it. And so we did, and here we are. Just we ended up pulling her out because it was such a big fight that it wasn't even worth it anymore. And so now it's just easier to have her at the house and while we work at home, which is so amazing for us. We get to work from home, and we get to have the ability to have her in our house as well. So there's that.
Yeah,
Can you
it's
hear me?
no, not to be ashamed of anything. Like, as parents, sometimes Oh, you hear me? Did you lose me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I hear you.
I think you were frozen there for a second.
Yes, never be ashamed of anything. As parents, parenting's not easy, and there's lots of challenges, and you're sending your children to school, and we don't know exactly what's happening throughout the course of the day. It's funny. I was talking about the importance of family before, how it's really important to create a culture in which you get people to embrace traditional family and kind of push back a little bit against the hookup culture because it leads to so many broken families. And when you're in an area where there's a lot of broken families, unfortunately, with that comes a lot of abuse because they're step parents. If you ever look into
Yep.
statistics with that, it's children are so much more likely statistically to be abused coming from that situation. So
Yeah.
it's a really good parallel. So you pulled your daughter out of school, and that took such courage. And so how has that been going? What have you been doing? How have you liked it?
Okay, I'm just gonna be straight up honest with you. Because I felt like the entire school thing was just traumatizing. I heard like I can't even tell you how many people stitched my video. Like it's so many. And I remember one of yours. I remember yours, and it was just along the lines of like all of the advice that I got was just like it's okay. You don't have to have that like that consistent like you said 45-minute block of math, science, English, it was just like this hardcore like doing this, doing that, all of those things, and it was just like one of those things where it just kind of spoke to me, and so I felt like I should just take a break, take a break from the whole school thing and kind of ease into it rather than, like, how do I explain that? It's almost like just, I think they call it unschooling, where you just like, just play, you just do things for fun, or, you just hang out and, like you teach based on what they want to learn. And so that's what we've kind of been doing. But then we've also been doing ABC Mouse because that was like one of the most convenient things for us at the time. And so it was just, yeah. So that's what we did. We just started ABC Mouse, and we were just doing it by ear and doing it based on what she was feeling comfortable with, because I didn't want to traumatize her more and say, you have to do 30 minutes of ABC Mouse every single day for the rest of the school year. Like, no, I'm not going to sit here and like, like, it's traumatizing to do that. So I allowed her, like, I gave her a goal, like, hey, do you think we can do this? And she agreed to it. And then we just kind of figured it out. And then now it's almost like she went from like super resistant to like, yeah, let's do it, you know?
Yeah, and when you have a child who's you're pulling out of public school, that's a major change for them. And
Yeah.
it's kind of human nature to be, oh, I have to replicate school because if I don't, am I cheating them? Am I taking away from their education? But they're stressed out to begin with. And when you first pull the children out, as you said, one of the biggest mistakes parents make is right off the bat, they're like, we're going to get super regimented and we're going to kind of replicate that public school schedule. But you're at the home and you can really do things at your own pace. So there's no need to rush. I mean, someone was asking me earlier, um, that their child was behind. I said, behind of what? The arbitrary guidelines of the Department of Education? Your child's learning at their pace. And if you do that and you create, and maybe you could elaborate on this because I'm sure you know more about this than me, is if you can create a less stressful environment that's emotionally easier to handle, you can really see your children start to do great. So, I mean, would you want to elaborate on the emotional side of that?
Yeah, I feel like it's the pressure. If you take off the pressure of you have to know your ABCs before next week, like that's not realistic, like a set expectation. But if you actually like, I feel like making it fun and making it playful rather than having a deadline of like, this has to be completed within 24 hours, or, like anything like that. I feel like it's anything that is like super pressured, especially with my kid. I don't know if anybody else's kid is like this, but when it comes to like pressuring and like, you have to do this within a certain time frame, like she's like, no, I don't. But when you make it fun and more playful, then it's and like prizes and it's just a lot more entertaining and fun, and that's what kids need. They don't need the regimen, they don't need the schedule. I know that the schedule helps, like, to keep them on track, but at the same time, sometimes, like, for now, for us, we're just doing it by ear. So
Yeah, I worked with a family recently in a consultation, and the child was pushing back a lot on what was happening with their homeschooling. And the child actually had said to the mom, I feel like all we do is school. Which, so I had sat down with the family and I just pointed out what you instinctively knew to do, which is sometimes take a step back, listen to your child, because doing less could ultimately, by creating that less stressful environment, could be more.
exactly. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And that's exactly what we've done. I feel like I am, like, for example, I don't know if you know who Claire Crosby is, but they started recently. They're a YouTube family. Um, they vlog and stuff, but they recently started this program where I don't know if it's for mostly adults or whatever, but I feel like they started this program and it's like learning life skills now, like as their kids. And I thought that was genius, because like if a child is interested in drawing, why not give them art classes? If they're interested in sewing, like, why not take them to a class that's going to help them learn how to make their own dress or make their own clothes? So for example, my daughter, sometimes she just loves to explore different things. And sometimes if she's like in her own head, like, hey, I really want to learn about, this. Or like my son the other night, he was like, hey, I really want to learn about engines. And I was just like, you little smart 4-year olds, like, what is this? So we went on YouTube and looked how an engine works, and we watched it together. And I was like, well, I just learned something new. Like it's almost like learning at their own pace and learning what they're interested in. And that's also helped me. So that's kind of what we've been doing lately, is just like learning things that they're interested in and kind of rolling with that. So
Yeah, you're embracing that unschooling. And I always tell parents that skills over subject matter, not that subjects don't matter. And it's nice, like, we want our children to know what happened in this date in history, and to have memorized this scientific theory. But the way you free a person is by teaching them skills, and artwork is a great example. So as your daughter gets older, how old is your daughter?
she's 7.
She's 7, right? So as she gets older, she can you can point her in the direction of doing entrepreneurial type things. I know a 9-year-old girl who had purchased these cheap Christmas elves, and then she custom printed artwork along with people's names onto the elves, and she wound up being featured on the front of a newspaper. She raised money from a local businessman who sent the elves overseas to the soldiers. But there's so much you can do, and whether it's printing designs on shirts, whether it's
Exactly.
contracting on Fiverr. I would actually love for your daughter, within the next 2 years, she could publish a book on Amazon KDP, and it doesn't have to
What
be
is
the
that?
most.
Did you say Amazon KDP? What is that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I started a family on a track a week ago with their 9-year-old, who hopefully in the next year, because she's into art, she'll publish her own book. And it could be a picture book, very simple. It could be a poem book. It could be creative writing, but it's fun, and the look of accomplishment you'll get from your child. And then, of course, you're teaching them business, right? And you tell your family members, and they buy the book, and then she gets actual money for the book that she wrote, and you could teach her about investing. So it's just,
Right.
unschooling is just unlimited in things you can do.
Right. Yeah. We were actually talking about this the other day, how she's like, She loves writing. Like, her and my husband are really good creative writers. And so like they're just like really good about just like making up stories and just having fun with it. And it's so interesting that you say that, because we were like, man, it would be so cool to because she was just writing her own little book, and we're like, we should totally like sell that and you can make money. And she's like, oh my gosh, like, yes, I want to do it. And Bo was my husband, Bo. He's like, we could totally like make a series out of it, you know, out of like the Cat and the Pumpkin, or like whatever they were watching or writing about. And I thought it was like the cutest idea. So yeah, no, I'll have to look into that.
Well, when you're ready, let me know, and I will guide you through the process of getting the book published, which isn't as hard as it sounds. The only thing you really have to help with is the formatting, because for a 9-year-old to figure out, that age range, get a little difficult. But you can
Yeah,
do it right on my PowerPoint, and I'll guide you through the whole thing. But yeah, I
that'd be
think that's so
awesome.
cool. Like, what type of art stuff have you? Oh, by the way, with the writing, there's a great program, the Creative Writer. You can find it right on Amazon,
Hmm.
which is designed, as they advertise it, after completing all 4 of their books, which is really like a 4-year curriculum. They actually say that your child will be ready to write their own graphic novel. You know, so
Yeah.
it's a pretty cool program. And what I would say is, if you get it, just keep the writing fun. Don't be rigorous with it. Oh, the creative writer says we have to do this right now. Just keep it fun, keep it loose. And how are you teaching her grammar and stuff like that?
As of right now, we're just doing the ABC Mouse stuff. So like whatever's on there, she's in the second grade level. I think it's the last one before they go into the next the academy portion of it. So we're just playing it by ear right now. We're just letting her do her own thing right now. So but next year we're going to get a little bit more rigorous and a little bit more like not necessarily intensive, but we're going to be a little bit more um like spend a little bit more time with school and just all of that. So
So cool, so cool. Yeah, you have a real in, because your daughter likes writing. So one of the things I tell parents all the time is, with writing and grammar, you never want to give your children a grade, because that doesn't teach them anything. But what you
right.
can do, really helpful, is get them in the habit of being their own editors. So after she writes, just sit down with her and go over her writing line by line. And you point out, hey, I love that you use the comma here. Or if it's a run on sentence, you say, you know, what you could have done is broke this up, and you could have put a period right here and then capitalized this letter. And you're pointing things out. Oh, I love what you did with the topic sentence, because I knew when I read this sentence, I knew what you were going to be writing about. And you just kind of get her in the habit of editing her own work. And by doing that, she'll start to think about these things subconsciously,
Interesting.
including when she reads, right? So now, as
Right.
she gets in the habit of editing her own work, as she reads, she'll actually pick up on the grammar and the literary styles of other authors that she reads.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. That's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to get on that. So cool. Thanks for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm obsessed. It's just, can't get off the education line. So, um,
Cantered it up. That's awesome.
so what other type of things are you doing?
As of right now, that's really all we're doing. We're just kind of, I guess, the unschooling, just allowing her to learn what she wants on top of the ABC Mouse, and just then, we actually hired somebody to come take our kid. We hired a nanny to go um, take our kids to like museums and just like go explore and all of that fun stuff. So we're just kind of allowing them to explore those types of those things and all of that. I can't tell you where it's at because it'll tell us where we live and stuff, but just to different places, and it's really cool for them to kind of explore that way. And so it's been really fun to kind of see their eyes like like, oh my gosh, like the world is bigger than just a book. so like getting them out and exploring those things has been really cool to see. So
Yeah, museums are great. And another benefit that someone pointed out the other day on the stream is that they actually have homeschool events at a lot of these museums. So if you call up in advance, say, hey, do you have any homeschool events? They'll say, yes, on this date. It's actually a great way to get out, meet other homeschool families in your area. And, you can kind of form your own little co ops through the people you meet at the museums.
yeah, no, that's cool. I didn't realize that they had those. I'm still brand new to all of this, so
Yeah, you're crushing. I love what you're doing. I love that you had um, the confidence in yourself to listen to your child. I mean, pull her out of school, and then to not jump into too much and make it this stressful thing. How has she liked it?
I think that at first she was cool with it, but then she kind of had a little bit of resistance to it. So that's when we kind of backed off. And so ever since we're just continuous about it. We're not necessarily not letting her do it, but we're just kind of more of like adamant about, okay, let's do this. Like it's fine. Like we're no pressure, but you can get a prize, all of the things. So it's pretty nonchalant, but at the same time, we're really trying to make sure that she doesn't stop learning. Does that make sense? And then like just teaching her like, hey, everything that you do in life right now is learning, like all of that. So
Yeah, well, that's so cool, and you're doing the unschooling, so it's really like there's no limit to what she could learn. Like even the museums, like right off the top of my head, I thought, oh, she's an artsy child. Maybe she would be interested in photography and like taking photographs of the different things at the museum. And there actually are like pretty laid back programs. They're fun. They have children like just get out into nature and take photos, which teach children all about shading and lighting and everything that comes along with photography.
that's so cool. Yeah, I'll have to look into that too. I know she's very artsy craftsy and she makes things out of nothing. So, like the 5-minute crafts that people watch on YouTube.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's the kind of crafts that she loves to do.
That's the best. I always tell families like Art Hub for Children, the YouTube
Yes.
channel, like it really doesn't have to be too formal as long as they're learning that skill.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Well, cool.
So tell us a little bit about what you do with the emotion. I guess you're a coach.
Emotion code. Yeah, I'm a certified energy healer. So I basically certified emotion code and body code practitioner. I actually help people with anxiety, depression, PTSD. I help people release the blocks from their heart energetically. That way, I always like to say if you have any of these 10 symptoms, then you probably have a heart wall. Anxiety, depression, PTSD, low energy, fatigue, major health issues, foggy mission in life, relationship issues, and then abundance and wealth issues. If you have any of those symptoms, then you probably have a heart wall. And basically, what a heart wall is like, so our organs create these emotions because everything in this world is energy. And have you ever been like so mad that, or like so emotional that you feel it physically?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's what, so like these emotions come from your organs, and then these emotions can get stuck inside of your body, and then they can cause the physical pain, they can cause you to get sick, they can cause you to be really reactive. So like if you have a trapped emotion of anger, then you are probably quick to anger. If you have a trapped emotion of sadness, then you probably cry really quick in sad movies, so like all of those things. So basically what I do is I use muscle testing or applied kinesiology, kind of like chiropractors do, but I do it remotely from a distance. So like I would be able to muscle test for and on behalf of you. And then I use a magnet. It sounds kind of weird, but it's just an ancient Chinese method to release negative energies from the governing meridian. It's just it's just an energy river. We energetically release negative trapped emotions, and I've helped people go to take their anxiety from like a 10, like 10 out of 10, like give me like panic attack, like full on panic attack, to like a 2 within like 10 minutes. And I help people with chronic issues, anxiety, depression, all of those things. So But like once you release that heart wall, like once that heart wall is completely gone, then all of those symptoms either go away completely or it becomes a lot more manageable. So that's pretty much what I do. And I do a lot of demos here on live. So it's really fun to kind of interact and all of that. So does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and that's such a cool thing, especially with like everything in the last 20 months with like people's anxiety and depression are through the roof. Have you seen an
Oh,
influx of people coming to you?
so I've been booked out like since September. Once I figured out how to use TikTok and figured out how to actually like use TikTok and go live and show how things work, I've been booked out since last September. So I've been super busy and like that's all the people I've worked with is anxiety, depression, chronic issues, releasing heart walls left and right. And I probably work with like 55 clients a week, so it's a lot. But
Wow.
it's yeah, so it's really cool just to see. So like you said, there has been a huge increase, and I've helped save lives. I've people have told me like, hey, I was on the verge of unaliving myself, and just like I'm like, but and then like after they worked with me, they hadn't had any more suicidal thoughts. They hadn't have like any negative thoughts. Like that's just gone, and it's almost like stepping into a new life and being like free. Free of the emotional baggage that was tearing you down, or those heavy backpacks that you feel like you're carrying around like emotionally. Yeah, I help
Yeah,
get rid of that. So
feel it like feel it in your throat and your heart and just like
yes. Yep. I actually used to have that. I used to have the anxiety and depression so bad to the point where I was either going to have to go get on medication or I was going to have to go to therapy. And so I chose therapy because I hate medication. I chose to go to therapy and I feel like it didn't do anything for me. I learned a lot of stuff, but I felt like it wasn't doing anything for me, like emotionally or mentally. So I went to therapy for like a solid 6 months ish, 5 or 6 months, somewhere around there. And I tried the emotion code and I did 2 sessions and I felt like I had more progress within those 2 sessions of the emotion code and body code than I did 6 months of therapy. And it was
yeah,
just like, for me, I was just like, what just happened here? And I just felt free. And I was just like, granted, I was not perfect, but I was to the point where I was just like, holy crap, what did you just do to me? Like, I feel like a whole new person. So,
yeah. I mean, in my experience, the best healers have some type of personal experience with what they're working on with people. I had Paola Brown on my stream, who she has this amazing homeopathy curriculum for young. Your daughter would probably love it. Actually, it's
what?
they work, yeah, they work hands on with herbs. Um, they learn how you do certain remedies, and I want to be careful how I word things, but if you're
I
not
know what you're
feeling well,
saying.
make yourself feel a little bit better. Yeah, I appreciate when other people talk in hobo code. So when you were like, unalive yourself, I was like, oh, that's I spent all my whole streams are just like some version of hobo code. I'm like, yeah, the Heineken infection, and just gotta be careful what you say. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
No, I totally know what you mean. That's really cool. What's her name? I'm going to need her information.
uh, Paola Brown, and she gave me an affiliate code. So if you want to use it, it's Classical Learner. It's 10% off. I'm going to give you free access to my homeschool community.
Oh
So
my
you could join.
gosh. Thank you.
No problem. More than happy. So join my community. You'll get access to all my research, and anything you need help with, you just inbox me right in there, and you know, I'm here for you. So
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. That's so nice of you.
yeah, you're welcome. Well, you have an amazing story, and I really appreciate that you were willing to come on and tell it. And I think you're doing great things. And as I tell all homeschool families, you will see the benefits of homeschooling for literally generations.
I totally agree with that. And that's the thing. I wish I would have done it sooner, but at the same time, I felt like I couldn't do it. But because you know, at first, especially after seeing your stitch from my video, I literally thought it was going to be like, you know, you have to do this and this and this, just like you have to replicate school. But then like all of the advice that from homeschooling people, that like people that have homeschooled in the past, I realized, you know what, it's really probably not as going to be, it's not going to be as hard as I think. So I'm just going to, I'm going to go for it. And if we fail, we fail. You know, we can always put it back in school, you know. But then I realized like how much simpler it was, and how less of like drama there was, and it was just easier. So
Yeah, well, homeschool children actually love learning, which is a crazy idea, you know. Like,
right.
school students, like by second grade, they're like, "I hate learning." It's like, oh, what? This institution is terrible.
Yep. Yep. Well, cool. It was so nice to talk to you, and thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Yes, anytime you want to talk, and I'm going to send you the link, and we'll get you set up.
Okay, thank you. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Take care.